like saying this with them before chapter 12. Visible symbols of food.
Wake up.
Visible symbols of food. Number 1, saying this with them before beginning. If the wudu occurs in the bathroom, then say it before entering or to yourself in an inaudible voice.
Okay, so the reason for this is that it's preferable, and we'll get to that later, that you don't make wudu in the same place where you use the bathroom. Just because the wudu is an act of worship itself, and it's something that should be honored, and so the place where you use the bathroom is not, it's the least honorable place probably in your home. So if possible, you should make wudu somewhere else. If it's not possible, if you're at work or if you have no other access to water except for in the bathroom, then you say Bismillah, but before you enter the bathroom, or if you're already in the bathroom, then you say it to yourself in a voice where only you can hear, not totally out loud.
So it's better to use the kitchen sink, you're saying?
Yeah, or to have like a, if it's like summertime, do it outside in the garden or something if you can. But yeah, it's definitely better to do it outside of the bathroom.
Number 2, if it is from a pot or jug, place it on your right hand side. Number 3, to be seated for wudu is preferable. Number 4, to be in a pure place. Number
Okay.
5,
So it should be a place of purity, and of course, obviously, bathrooms are not, they have filth in them. Number 2 is if you have it on your, if you're going to making it out of a cup or a jug or a pot or whatever, right? You have like a vessel of standing water that you're going to make wudu out of. The sunnah is to come from your right side. So you place it towards your right side because it's going to be easier to reach, and then you draw the water out from there with your right hand.
Number 5, wash both hands 3 times, beginning with the right hand, making sure to get between the fingers. Number 6, do istinja, which is did I say it right? Istinja, which is to sniff some water into the nose. It is necessarily followed by istindar, which is to blow the water out. Do this 3 times. It is also sunnah to do this as soon as one wakes up. Second,
Okay, so among the sunnahs of wudu, so sunnahs are the highly recommended acts that precede the actual obligatory acts, is you start with your right hand again, and you wash each hand 3 times up to the wrist, and you make sure you get in between your fingers. You just run your fingers in between, and then it's to sniff water into your nose and blow it out 3 times. This may have been an omission. It's also sunnah to do the same with water in your mouth. Rinse out your mouth 3 times with water, using your right hand.
You're supposed to clean it with your left hand, right?
What's that?
Blow it out with your left hand.
Yeah, so when you're doing this, when you're sniffing up in your nose and then you're blowing it out, you're using your left hand. So, go on, Dinner.
Number 7, it is recommended to go slightly beyond the elbows to ensure that the elbows were covered, and also to increase the light you will have on qiyam. Number 8, it is sunnah to do all of one's hair from the hairline all the way back, then return to the front and go back again. The sunnah is to wet your hair, then place your thumbs on the temples along your index fingers with your hairline, then go back again and return it with your thumb, serving as a pivot.
So I'll demonstrate that. And again, what this is covering is the sunnah acts. So it seems like we're just skipping right to the elbows, right? But obviously, washing up to the elbow is one of the obligatory acts in the sunnah. And the sunnah is to make sure you get past the elbows, just to make sure that you've completely covered them. In terms of wiping the hair, the sunnah motion is to take your hair, you wet your hands, then you take your hands, put your thumbs on your temples, and just wipe back this way, then forward again, and then back. So that's what the wiping of the hair is described.
Number 9, do your ears 3 times by letting your thumbs and index fingers, then placing your index fingers on a ledge inside your ear and your thumbs behind the fleshly bone of your ear. Keep your index finger still and move your thumb up all the way up and then back again. Clean behind the ears. That's when we're speaking cleaning the ears. It is the back of the ears, not the inside.
So I'll demonstrate this as well. So the ledge is this part right here on the inside of your ear. You put your index finger there, here, your thumb's wet behind the ear, and I'll turn to each side so you can all see it. And then you bring your thumb over and back like this. For the men, it's this way. And that's, again, one of the sunnahs, not an obligatory act, but it is one of the sunnahs.
Understand, before the feet, do between the toes, for this is sunnah. Then double check the heels, since the Prophet ﷺ said, woe to the heels from the fire, because he was seeing that many companions were not doing the heels, and therefore their prayers would not be delivered to the heavens. Of course, Allah judges people by their intentions. However, the angel of the word only raise up those whose prayer is done correctly.
So, and that's a good phraseology there. Those whose prayer is done correctly, and one of the prerequisites for your prayer to be correct is that your wudu is correct. And so, specifically what they're talking about here, so if you miss the heel, sometimes people make their wudu quickly, either missing between the toes or more obviously between the back of their heel, because they're in a rush or they're not taking their time or they're not this way. What's being emphasized here is to make sure that you cover everything and that you've made a good effort. One of the principles in the deen is that everything that one does, meaning everything, even if it's something completely unrelated to religion, everything that one does, you do it with excellence and you put your best effort into it, right? This is one of the guiding principles of being a Muslim. Whether it's your work, whether it's playing with your kids, whether it's some volunteer work that you've done, your schooling, you make the highest effort that you can in everything. And you do everything with your utmost, and you make the intention to do it as excellently as possible, even more so for things that are related to the religion, and even more so for things that are related directly to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the emphasis here is just make sure that you may be in a rush, but just make sure that you're taking your time to do your wudu as best as you can.
After completing wudu, exit the bathroom and raise your hands up as if you were balancing the basket on your head. Then make the shahada sign with your right hand, supplicating the following as narrated in Sahih Muslim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, one with no associates. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger.
So, again, the sunnah after completing the wudu is to raise your hands as if you're balancing. So it's like the dua, but higher, and with your right hand, you point up with your index finger and you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. And that's from the sunnah acts. And he also states here, which is correct, if you're in a bathroom making wudu, you do it once you leave the bathroom. Otherwise, you do it as soon as you complete your wudu.
Allahumma ij'alni min at-tawbin wa ij'alni min Allah, make me from the patient of the penitent and make me from those who purify themselves. Subhanallah, wa bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Glory be to you, Allah, and all praise. I testify there is none worthy of worship except you. I seek your forgiveness and I repent.
Thank you.
A point about all of these dua that we can, like the shahada and that are making, and they're throughout the book. Two things. One of them, don't feel like you need to know them all right away, like by tomorrow. It's for most of us, it's a language that we're not accustomed to. Some of the letters don't exist in the language that we speak, and it's something that has to be practiced. Now, one of the things that will help is if you go online, you can find all of these things recited, like websites where they give you a recitation, you can listen to it, and that'll help you figure it out too. Because even the way that they're written out using the Western or Roman characters, sometimes the same letter is used for two different sounds often, and it might be like a diacritical mark, a dot or a line or something just to distinguish. So it's not like it's going to be easy. So don't be tough on yourself if you're having a hard time learning these, but just stick to it and make some kind of plan and practice it. So Sheikh Shani said that we've had two people who haven't been here, so I'm not going to read through all this at all. I'm just going to go over the general topics that we covered and see if there's any questions.
One question on the dua. So if I'm in the masjid and I want to just say it in my heart, can I do that?
absolutely. With dua, right, you should. So there's the sunnah dua that specifically come from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they have specific wording, and they're in Arabic, and there's tremendous blessing in learning those and reciting those because they're the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the best dua after those is the dua that's sincerely from your heart and that you say in your own tongue, and that you use your own words to say. And so for most of us, it's going to be English or maybe some other language, but it's going to be in our own language. And the only time that you have to recite the dua in Arabic is in the prayer. So one of the preferred times for making dua is when you're in sujood, when you're bowing with your forehead during the prayer. In the prayer, the scholars say that it has to be in Arabic. So you can't make dua in the prayer in another language. Otherwise, make dua as much as possible all day, every day, at every moment, and make it sincerely from your heart, and use whatever words Allah inspires in your heart. Although it is still important and useful to learn the dua of the Prophet and also the ulama that came before us, because there was a lot of other words as well. Any other questions on that section? I'm sorry, I know I just started to move on. Alright, so for those people who are new or may have missed some of the classes, just a quick overview of what we covered. So the first chapter was Shishai put together some hadith and some ayahs from the Quran, just explaining the importance of prayer and the critical nature of it and why it is so central to the Muslim belief. You know, it's one of the things that distinguishes clearly and outwardly Muslims from many others is that prayer is like a central part of our life. We do it all the time. Do it at least 5 times a day. We'll often define, or if we're shown in media, we're shown praying, right? Because it's the defining characteristic of the Muslims as a people. And it's very important for us. Chapter 2 continues that in giving more explanations about why the prayer is so important, so virtuous, and some encouragements for doing the prayer. Chapter 3 is really just a couple of lines, and so I'll just read those very quickly, and it's just who the prayer is obligatory upon and when. So the Prophet ﷺ said to teach children to pray when 7, but then to begin enforcing it at age 10. This is so that when a child reaches puberty, which will be after age 10 in most cases, then they will already be praying. The prayer is obligatory upon every sane Muslim once they reach bulugh, which is puberty or maturity. There are no other conditions. The obligation is lifted from one when they are out of consciousness, such as in a coma or in a state of fainting. For example, if one loses consciousness during Asr time and they have yet to pray, and they wake up 3 days later during Isha time, they would just wake up Asr and then pray. So that's it. The only condition is that you're sane, Muslim, and an adult. And by adult, we mean that you've reached puberty. After that, the prayer is obligatory upon you. And for children, what's encouraging for you, for those of you who are parents, is start teaching them to pray when you're 7 at least, right? Getting them into it. And by the time they're 10, start emphasizing that they need to go pray. They're not getting sin for not praying. And it's not obligatory upon them yet. But what's important about that, and which you mentioned, is that they're going to reach puberty at some point thereafter. And by then, hopefully, the prayer is already such a routine part of their life that it'll just ease into the transition. And we covered the 4 preconditions of the prayer, which is that the time of the prayer is in, your clothes and yourself are purified, like wudu and free from filth, that the praise of prayer is also pure, and that you know the direction of the prayer. The 5th chapter covers the times of the different prayers, and it's useful, and there was a chart that was handed out that Sheikh Shadi took the time to put together for us. And if anybody has any questions about that or needs a copy of the chart, I'm sure that there's one in the office. So during the Q&A, you can just ask about that application.
On the website.
What's that?
It's on the website too, right?
Is it?
Prayer times, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but and not just the actual time. Sheikh Shadi did a chart showing the sun, the different positions of the sun for each prayer time. That way, even if you don't have a chart like telling you it's time for us, you can just look up and you should be able to figure it out. It's a practice. Chapter 6 was the Adhan and the Iqamah, and we just went through the history of how the Adhan came. That there was some slight different wordings in the Adhan in different places. discussed the different types of impurities, hadath and hadath. One is ritual impurity, and one is just actual physical impurity. Then I believe last week you guys covered the 3 different kinds of water, which is pure, purifying, and filthy water. So those are the 3 categories. Pure, meaning that that water is purifying, means that that water can be used to purify. So if something is filthy or if you don't good, you use that water. Pure water is not purifying, so it can be used for non-ritual purposes. You can't make wudu with it, but it's fine to clean something with, to cook with, etc., to bathe in. And water which is filthy, you can't be used at all, and it has to be disposed of. It looks like we also covered last week, and I'm sorry I was out, the chapter on Muslim, which is the major ritual ablution, so cleaning your whole body, and the conditions that require that. And then you guys concluded with 10 and 11, which is wudu. Specify all the requirements of wudu and the inner sunnahs of wudu. And then we just covered the external sunnahs of wudu in this chapter, the physical sunnahs. Does anybody have any questions about it? I know it's a lot.
So if you don't have water, you can use clean soil, right?
So that's going to,
So he's asking if you don't have access to water, what can you do? So there is a chapter that we cover on that. It's tayammum, and that's one of the things that we're going to get to. And there are some rules for it, and that's actually good stuff. It's actually a really important thing, and a tremendous blessing from Allah that we have that available source as well. Did I see any other? Okay, bismillah. Who wants to cover the next chapter, which is called the prayer and the voluntary? Okay.
the mic's not going to stretch, so I may need you to, unless you're just like really loud. So it's page 29. Unless you feel like you can just be really loud.
Yeah, I think I'm alright. Let's start chapter 29.
Page 29, chapter 13.
For the man, he must cover his aura, which is from the belly button to his knees. It is the mahrum, or frowned upon, for a man to pray with his shoulder uncovered, except in Hajj and Umrah. However, if it happens, there is no need to repeat it. It is likewise makruh to pray in one garment, for fear that it will not serve as proper coverage. It is recommended that men cover their hair with a cap that distinguishes them as Muslims.
Okay. So for men in the prayer, this is the absolute basic requirements, right? The bare minimum, not what's preferred, not what's optimal, but just the absolute bare minimum that if your prayer will be accepted, it's to cover from the belly button down to the knees, and it's not inclusive, that's up to. So, in an emergency circumstance, a man could just like wrap a cloth or a towel around his waist, as long as it's long enough to reach his knees, and he will be able to pray in that. Although, as it mentions, it's makruh, which means disliked, frowned upon. It doesn't make it haram, and it doesn't make it invalid, but it's not preferred to use one garment. So, it's also not preferred or makruh that he prays with his shoulders uncovered. Hajj is an exception because the clothing that men wears in Hajj automatically leaves his shoulder uncovered. But otherwise, he should cover them. Although again, it doesn't make the prayer valid. And it's also recommended for men to cover their hair with a cap or a turban during the prayer. Again, it doesn't make it invalid not to, but it is what's recommended.
What a woman must wear in prayer is the same as what she must wear outside the prayer in the presence of foreign men. Foreign men, mahram, are any who could potentially marry her. The mahram is the men who cannot marry her. This list includes the following: husband, who is already married to her and thus cannot marry her again; father and grandfathers all the way up to Adam; stepfather, even after he divorces her mother; brothers from either or both parents; sons and grandsons all the way down; uncles from both parents' sides; nephews from either brothers or sisters; siblings from wet nursing, 2 people who drank the breast milk of the same woman.
Right. So that list is actually exhaustive. These are the only people who who are considered mahram, or someone who cannot marry a woman. This is the same category of people who can see a woman without the normal clothing that she would wear outside, so she doesn't have to cover her hair around them. She can expose her arms to a certain distance, etc. These would be like her father, the entire list. So fathers and grandfathers all the way up. That means if your great-grandfather is alive, it's fine. He's not someone who can marry your right descendant. And equally, sons, grandsons, and great-great-grandsons, if you live to be 120, inshallah, and you have like 15 generations after you, all those males are not to you. Your brothers, whether they're half-brothers or full-brothers, your stepfather. So if your mother is divorced or widowed and she remarries and she marries another man, he is mahram to you even if they get divorced. He can never marry you. He is like your father. Your uncles on both sides, your nephews, meaning they're born to your brother or to your sister, and stealing from wet nursing. So in Sharia Islam, if a woman gives milk to two children, those children are considered brother or sister, or brother or sister. They're considered like siblings. If they've nursed from the same woman, then they are basically brother or sister. They can't marry each other, they can't marry her, they can't marry her relatives, the same way that they wouldn't be able to marry their own mother's relatives. Essentially, those two children become siblings. And so there's all the rules that apply to someone who's a blood brother would apply to them.
All men not on the above list can only see the face and hands of the woman. When the Messenger ﷺ was performing Hajj, many new Muslims were approaching him with questions. In one of these sessions, he was seated along with his young cousin, Fadl, and the son of his uncle Abbas. Fadl had just reached the age of puberty. A beautiful woman came to the Prophet ﷺ to ask. When the Prophet ﷺ saw Fadl staring at her, he gently turned the boy's face to another direction. The woman asked, "What must a Muslim woman cover?" He ﷺ said, "Everything except this, and he pointed to her face and her hands, at his face and his hands.
Okay, so right before we had this list of people who are considered mahram, like a woman doesn't have to cover the statement is that what a woman must wear in prayer is the same as she must wear outside of prayer in the presence of foreign men, meaning anybody with this list of men. So what you wear outside of your house as a Muslim woman is what you have to wear in your prayer. And what exactly is that? The hadith here in the Muslim Imam Ahmad is a woman asked the Prophet what that consisted of, and he said everything except this and this. So he covered his face and his hands, meaning that that's the only thing that is permissible for a woman to show outside of public.
Regarding the headscarf or hijab, it is also mentioned in the Quran in the following verses. They should draw their scarves over their bosoms and not display their beauty except to their husbands. The Arab women used to wear scarves over their heads, but used to pull them behind their shoulders so that they would flow in their backs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here that they should pull them to the front to cover their chests.
So this is the ayah in the Quran that specifically discusses hijab. One of the things that's interesting about the wording here is that it's not saying you should put on a scarf and then also cover your chest. There's a presumption that women are already wearing the scarf because they were, except that at that time they used to wear it and then tie it back so that it would hang behind them. And then Allah says in the Quran that they should tie it forward so that it also covers this area of their body. So there's no question that the command to wear hijab is in there, but also that it's just extended, not just the hair, but also to make sure that it covers you completely and honestly.
The elderly women that are past the prospect of marriage, there is no blame on them if they lay aside their outer garments, provided that they do not make a wanton display of their beauty. But it is best for them to be modest. Allah sees and knows all things. Thus, if the elderly woman is allowed to put down her scarf, the young woman must put it on.
So, again, this is one of those things where the Quran is itself explaining another ruling within the Quran itself. So in this case, in this verse it says that the elderly women that are past the age of puberty, they're talking about really older women that nobody is going to be looking at romantically or lustfully, that they're allowed to put aside their outer garments. Well, if the case is that this is being given as a dispensation of permission for an older woman, the opposite is also true, which is that an older woman must already actually be wearing it. And I think we're going to
lot of things. Yeah, there are some there's coding chromosomes. However, so there's been some you know how this somebody comes with this already. They're like they've been integrated for there is a genetic problem and it causes like some kind of resistance and they just keep multiplying.
My family, somebody married their second cousin, so you can see the effect on the
So that doesn't hurt. So the other thing is though, it's something that is this really big family. They're like huge tribes, which is the way that they used to live at the time. Everybody was some kind of so that was just the custom they were married. There was enough, and it didn't concentrate generation after generation. So it's not harm to marry cousins, probably it's not for. I know some families that would get done that is on small breastfeeding.
Oh, yeah.
So that the cousins are no, the kids.
Allah